2015, I lost 90% of my MRR between 2014 and 2015. It was the hardest year of my life.
Jim, just tell us, who are you? How did you get started in this MSP world?
It's a great question. I'm Jim Smith, founder and owner of Proper Sky, home of IT the proper way. How did I get into this in particular? So it's a long story. Entrepreneurship has always been pretty close to me, right? So believe it or not, I took an entrepreneurial study class at Drexel University when I was attending school. And I met this guy that was starting up a business. The business ultimately failed, but they brought me in and I sort of managed the network there. And I kind of fell in love with, I'm dating myself here, Microsoft Small Business Server 4.5, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
It was, yeah. So, small office and had a bunch of staff there. We got that up and working. Everything was hunky-dory, and I was kind of bored. I ended up teaching myself how to code and Access. I ended up rewriting a database for those guys, which was a lot of fun. Real small business. Enjoyed it. And one of the nice things is I worked full-time and I went to school part-time. I kind of saw the writing on the wall. And I was like, oh, I see. This is what life's going to be like for the next 40 years. So after I got my degree, I was like, I'm going to go see the world. But I had no money. So I joined the Peace Corps. And I lived overseas in the Peace Corps for a couple of years. And I thought, this is great. No work. It'll be easy. Get away from all the computers, reading a book and fishing with string and a hook and, just hanging out on the beach. And so I ended up landing in the South Pacific. And as soon as they found out that I was an IT guy and I managed the network, they put me in charge of the largest IT college in the country. So we had 400 students, a lab of like 170 computers, and a budget of zero, oh God, I can't even, Ponga. Ponga was the dollar in Tonga. So nice. I really learned how to do a lot with a little. But in that job, I actually, word spread. And so other small businesses and NGOs and other organizations kind of reach out and say, hey, we heard you're doing X over at the lab. Can you help us out with Y? And so I ended up meeting up and partnering up with some small businesses. And I really enjoyed it. I loved it.
Wow.
And so when I got back from the Peace Corps, I was like, you know what? I don't really see myself working for other people. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to start my own thing. So 2005, got back and, 18 years ago today, hard to believe. And, now I run Proper Sky, right? So we're, decent. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So you've never haven't had a real job since, so to speak.
Correct. It's actually it's a big challenge, right? So I had one boss and it was just for a few years, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so it's pretty much a freelancer. And so, it shaped me and my decision-making quite a bit, right? And when you're starting out small, like most MSPs, the guys that do this all, the guys that start real small, one or two employees, it's, when you're the boss, you're kind of used to just getting your way, right? But as you start to scale up, that attitude, having to work with coworkers, doesn't fly. So you get to a certain size in your organization, it's like, whoa, I really do wish I had a middle-level management or I had a better appreciation for interacting with cohorts instead of just bossing people around.
Well, I think that's a great point is, kind of getting that introspection to say, hey, how long is it going to take me to realize that I'm a shitty manager? Right? Like how long is it going to take me to realize that I'm not a great CFO or, a phenomenal salesperson, and then having to decide, should I learn how to be awesome at that? Do I have to? I think that's always a really interesting inflection point. And I think those lessons just keep coming the whole way through, all the way to the point of, am I a good CEO? I own the company, but am I any good at this part of it? I don't know. How have you kind of walked that path of realizing what you're good at and what you should put your efforts into getting good at?
That's a very apropos question. I'll be honest with you, Josh. That's a really interesting point, right? So Gary Peak has a saying that I always remember this. He's like, entrepreneurs think they can order pizza better than everybody else, business owners. And in a weird way, we do. You know what I mean? And it's like there's like this frenetic, I don't know, ADHD sort of like, I'm going to make this vision come true. And it's not for all entrepreneurs. There's some guys that are real good operators that sort of grow up the other way. Right. For me, I'm definitely the visionary. I'm not the integrator. And so I found this passion for tech, right? I liked helping small businesses. I could immediately see the need and like what the impact I could have helping their business. And so, it's like, well, I'm going to be the technician, and then I'm also going to do the books, and then I'm also going to be the guy that invoices. I'm going to be the guy that procures. And then all of a sudden you're like, man, I don't really like doing this stuff anymore. It's not fun. And I think that's the first lever. The first layer. It's like, okay, I'm going to get somebody that does bookkeeping because I'm just not good at this. And, it just isn't my bag. And I think you sort of outsource those admin functions. And then you kind of keep the tech to yourself as you kind of grow up. But then you get to a certain point. For me, I realized this in retrospect. I would get to around 10 to 12 employees, and I just couldn't get beyond it, and I think one of the struggles that a lot of MSP owners have is there's a difference between control and empowerment, right? So I think a lot of times entrepreneurs feel like, or business owners, MSP owners, feel like you're being a good boss, that you're helping by giving the guys the answers or helping your team with the answers, right? And really what you're doing is you're just kind of distilling control. And I think one of the interesting challenges that I've had here is we got like 21 employees now, is like really going from, I have my fingers in all the pots and I'm making all the decisions and all the hard stuff is trickling up to sort of like, and I'm struggling with this honestly, is empowering your team to make those decisions and make the decisions in a way that are reflective of the way the organization stands for. And then in a way that translates to the people that are actually doing the work. Right.
Right.
So I mean, I could, if you want me to keep talking, I could tell a great story.
Well, go for it. Let's hear a great story.
Sure. All right. So this is not a great story, but this is pretty typical.
Well, what do you want a fucking typical story for? Make it a great story or don't tell it at all, for God's sake.
Okay. All right. No, so this is actually a real good learning story. So
all right, good.
I was like, you know what? I want to get into marketing, right? So I was like in 2017, I rebuilt my whole website. I did it all. I did it in WordPress, and I got subcontractors here to do different pieces. I put it all together. I learned all about marketing. Right. It took 18 months, and I was like, oh, this is great. I know a lot about marketing. This is awesome. And then I'm like, man, I'm too busy. I can't do this. I'm going to hire a kid, teach them everything that they need to know about marketing, and then I'm going to empower them and let them do the work, right? So I hired a great kid, and I was just too busy to literally sit down with them and explain all the things. And then marketing had changed dramatically just that 6 years between 2018 and 2024. It's like a whole new world, right? So I'm sitting down there and I'm like, man, I'm paying this guy X. I'm not even able to sit there and coach him. I'm expecting outcomes of Y. He doesn't even know where to get started, And I realized at that moment that that's how I'd run my business the entire way. I was always like, I'm going to get somebody that's relatively inexpensive, teach them the way that I want to do things, and then kind of raise them up. And I think there's a level of maturity that has to happen if you're ever going to scale beyond a certain size. You can't do that. You actually have to hire smarter people than you to give you the answers. And so at a certain point, I was like, you know what? I would much rather spend twice what I'm paying on this person, have somebody give me the answers and grow that way, than actually spend another second of my time doing a half-assed job teaching this kid something that I'm not really an expert in, and that's what we did. We let this guy go. I brought in a marketer, and then boom, all of a sudden, all these pieces that were taking forever to get done, got done, started getting way better advice, way better answers, and our messaging and branding and everything got a lot clearer and more consistent. And then you jump that hurdle a little bit, you're at the next level.
Yeah, hell yeah. No, that's interesting. There's a lot to unpack in there. And there is that like kind of path that all entrepreneurs, can most go into, and some of them see past it quicker. But it's that the first wave of who we hire is who we can afford. Right. And then it gets into that place of who can I hire that I think matches my culture and has the skills, and how wrong am I going to be? And then, eventually you figure it out. But there is always that wave of who can I afford? Then I think a lot of times we put a lot of our attributes as entrepreneurs or owners onto them and say, well, when I was starting out, someone just kind of threw me in the deep end and I figured it out. I hope you're that same person. And it's like, well, probably you're not. I wish you were, but any time I've gone down that experiment, it hasn't worked out. Doesn't mean it can't work out. It just hasn't worked out. Because I think that entrepreneurial kind of drive is not in everybody. It's, so you hire that kid and say, You look enough like me. Let's see what you can do. I'll give you the tools and anything I can share. Now go run. Just hasn't seemed to pan out for me, and didn't sound like it panned out for you just yet, at least.
No, in almost most circumstances, actually, I think in every circumstance, that mentality. It's like, like sometimes it's 6 months it takes you to realize it. Sometimes it's 18 months. Sometimes it's 4 years.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
Yeah, exactly. Here's your rifle. You're a soldier. Get out there, right?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Jim, let me ask you this. So let me ask you what you think about this statement. As you evolve through your career, you start out having to have all the answers. And as you get to more senior levels of your career, it's most important that you have all the right questions. What do you think of that?
I think that is insanely accurate.
Yeah.
There's an equivalent statement. It's I forget who it is, but it's like the beginning of knowledge is understanding how much you don't know, or something like that. I forget what the context is. Similar vibe. I think that's just it. I think you have this sort of fake until you make it. I've got all the answers, cock assuredness. You know what I mean? When you're younger and you're like, I know everything about this. There's no challenge I could ever tackle. And then you get to a certain point, you're like, man, there's so much in this world that I don't know about.
Right.
Yeah.
And I observe in our clients a lot, and myself a lot. I won't personalize this too much, but this notion of sharing the answers with your team in terms of how the business operates and how it should operate or could operate. The more answers the owners tend to try to lead with, the more you get stuck into that thing that we all hope that we're immune to, of we do it this way because we've always done it this way. And, you kind of impart like, well, this is how you do this and this is how you do that. And you watch them struggle and not do it the way you thought. And then you kind of say, well, why am I being so dogmatic about this? Is there a different way? Is there a better way? Is the way I've done it really the way I should be training them to do it? Or like you said, should I hire people smarter than me and say, this is how I've done it. Go break it until you have something better. Like, how have you kind of reconciled, what I think is a pretty astute observation?
Thank you. So that is really one of the things I'm struggling with, honestly, right now. Right. Mm-hmm. So I still have this. I have 18 years of hardwired getting my fingers in the pot and giving everybody the answers. Mm-hmm. When the reality is this person's been doing it and focused on that particular trench so much deeper and better in their lives. Why on earth should I dictate to them what they need to do, right? And this, I think, goes back to the previous question. It's asking the right questions, right? So it's not about having the answers. If I hire a service manager, I really should expect them to tell me how to run the service department, right? Mm-hmm. That's what they do for a living, right? Now, I might have an impact. This is the experience I want the customers to have. Mm-hmm. So I want people to feel. Mm-hmm. So I want the employees to feel. But that doesn't mean that these are the statuses that I want on the tickets. And I think you need to go down and figure out a way to do a better inventory workflow, right? Like that's, that maybe that's not the problem, right? So maybe that's not the biggest fish to fry. And I think, finding your place in that space where you're what Habu, right? Your highest and best use. Like as a CEO, it's like, how do you give everybody enough rope to be a cowboy, right? But not enough that they can hurt themselves, right? So it's like, I think that's the challenge that I'm struggling with. And then also, what's my role now, right? So if I've been the puppet master for the last 15 years and I've taken away the autonomy and the decision-making from these people, how do I re-empower them to make the right decisions, but also do it in a way where they feel safe and that even the bad decisions won't come back to haunt them, Right. And it's a struggle. I mean, really, Josh, I wish I had an answer for it, but it's a process, right?
I take this approach with my clients, and it's awesome to use service manager as an example, because I take this approach where I kind of shock the system by saying, hey, Jim, you hired this service manager. Yep, they're credentialed. They look like they know what they're doing. Let's start with the three things that you want. You want a really awesome client experience. You want a really awesome employee experience. And you got to have a money component in there. You want 55% gross profit on the services you deliver. Can we agree on those? All right, great. We agree on those. Tell this kid, this is what you owe me. There's a framework in place of how we've done in the past that's got us pretty close to those. I'm only looking at you to deliver me those three things: a net promoter score over 70 and always growing, an e-net promoter score over 80 and always growing, and 55% SDGP. You deliver me that, I won't care how you're doing it because you're doing it better than we were able to do it before. Does that sound a little too cavalier?
No, I think that makes a lot of sense, right? So, and this is the part about the vision and the sort of KPIs. So, I don't know if you run the EOS framework or not, Josh, but that's kind of like, it sounds like you're speaking that language a little bit here. So, that's what we do, and clarity is kindness, right? And so, while you have actually not said much, you have given a lot of weight in those three measurements, right? So, employee promoter score, customer satisfaction, and gross margin percent, right? So you're looking at the fiscal component, the employee satisfaction, and you're looking at your customer satisfaction, right? And so that gives them the autonomy to make impacts in a way that they can improve those scores, that lets them be successful, but it also gives them a clear roadmap of how you're going to measure success, right? What that looks like.
That's right.
And I think that's a really key part to this, right? And also, I mean, you have another point too. Like, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? So it's not like, you just, and this is a mistake that I think a lot of MSPs make too, right? So, oh man, I'm really struggling with sales, so I'm just going to hire a sales guy. You get the sales guy off the street and you go, hey, here you go. Here's some business cards. Here's a Google Maps and a laptop. Get out there and go sell us $10,000 a month in MRR. See you later. And they, pat him on the butt and let him go out there. Well, it's great. You set some benchmarks and some goals, but like, you can't expect that person to deliver the message or say what you're going to say or do what you're going to do in a way that's representative of the organization. And it requires coaching, time, and adjustment. And I think that's the piece that owners really need to figure out, right? I mean, it's the piece I'm trying to figure out. When am I needling, and when am I actually helping guide the structure, right? So
is that so? We're gonna come back to that. I interrupted a thought that you were having. For today, what is your role in the business today?
So right now, I'm kind of figuring it out. So I'm sort of visionary right now, right? And so, our ambition is ultimately, I want to grow. I got 9 years. I want to grow to about 10 times the size that we are right now. I want to do that through 4 to 5 organic acquisitions, and I want to do it without private equity, right? So I want to try to find traditional financing or alternative financing means, because I feel like there's a dearth of incoming capital into this market that's eroding the trust of some of these organizations and doing a disservice to some of the customers and people that work for MSPs right now. And I'm not saying that of all organizations,
Sure.
But I feel like there's an opportunity here for us to sort of establish a brand and a presence in this space for like-minded MSPs that really want to make sure that their people are taken care of and that their customers are taken care of and want to be part of something that's pretty amazing, right?
Yeah.
So that's my job right now, is right. So how do I translate that vision, right, into a way that my team can start to execute and build a structure and foundation to get us from A to B?
All right. So what I didn't hear you say is you're doing all these things. You're responsible for making sure AR gets taken care of. You're responsible for, ticket flow or coming up with the next automation rule. I'm not hearing you say all that stuff. You really are talking about the thing you should be talking about, which is vision and direction of the company. Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. That's excellent. Yeah. And what if you were to go back, we won't go all the way back 20 years of owning the business. If we told you that that's what you'd be doing today, if we told you 10 years ago that that's what you'd be doing today, how would you have reacted to that?
So 2015, I lost 90% of my MRR between 2014 and 2015. It was the hardest year of my life. I had 11 employees at the time. I had to let 7 of them go. We ended up with 4 of us at the end of this. And I was in a pretty bleak place. If you would have told me that my ambition was to grow not only, 50x, right?
Right. From then,
I would
yeah.
have been like, no way, no way. But in many ways, I think you need that. I used to get upset. Like you see people are like, oh man, you're going to be the next Google or your unicorn or these MSPs that grow from zero to, 7,000 managed endpoints in 3 years. And you know what? That's their path. Everybody's path
Yeah.
is different, right? And so I think I would be surprised and I would be ecstatic that I made it through. And then not only that I made it through, but I still had the ambitions to continue on, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. But you wouldn't have been skeptical. It doesn't sound like you would have been like, yeah, right. Yeah, that'll never be me. It doesn't sound like that's your personality.
nah, man. Yeah, no, it's not my personality at all. Yeah,
Nice. Nice,
yeah,
nice,
yeah.
nice. Well, that's a tough moment. We're gonna stay 10 years ago for a minute, all right? So that happens, you lose 90% of your MRR. You had to reduce the staff, which is heartbreaking because you probably had some really awesome people that
Great
you hated
people.
to let go. What kept how bad was it? 90% of MRR, maybe you're telling me you were 50-50 on project and hourly and MRR.
I
but
had I made the classic mistake of one big customer, right?
oh,
So yeah, so funny story, right? So this ties back in. So when I got back from the Peace Corps, I wrote a script, right? And this was 2005. Craigslist was all the hotness, right? And
mhm.
so it was a Perl script. I'd go out and I'd parse the RSS feed, and if I saw the word Linux, server, Windows, whatever, it would text me the message. And then I was literally the first person to call a couple of these customers.
Nice.
The first client I answered was a Nigerian arts collective, right? So it was a guy down in Center City, Philadelphia, and he had an Ubuntu server running in his house. So I was like, oh man, this is all the hallmarks of a scam. But I went down there anyway because I was hungry and talked to this guy. And he said, hey, listen, I fixed the server. Everything was fine. We got it up and working. Everything was good. And it was legit. It was a legitimate opportunity. He said, hey, listen, we're starting a business buying dermatology practices. And we need somebody to help us build our data center. Can you help us build a data center? And so, um, I had a little bit of experience managing a bunch of hosted remote desktops for the student labs. And so I was like, yeah, I can do this. Literally the next day, he bought me a plane ticket in that meeting, flew me down to Atlanta. I met the other owner. And then they grew from 4 providers with 4 practices when we started in one state. And then we grew to 13 states, 70 providers, 60 offices, like 700, 800 employees or something like that. And we managed everything. And I just couldn't keep up with the growth. I was just holding on, and
Yeah.
just faking it until I made it, And so, it was easy because I just had to make a little bit of money, make sure everybody was getting paid, and then incrementally grow, grow, grow. And I made so many mistakes, so many mistakes. The first one, the classic, is all your eggs in one basket, right? So I had years to diversify, and I didn't, right? And so I did manage to pick up a few stragglers along the way, get 1 or 2 contracts signed. But that organization failed spectacularly. They went out of business in slow motion. It was like watching a train wreck. And I could just feel the pieces ripping off, month by month as the AR increased and everything went south, and then I had to pivot, right? And so literally a bunch of the providers that had left started their own practices. And so I managed to pick up a few of those on the way out. And that kept the lights on and the doors open. But man, it was tough. It was tough.
Dang. And that's the you would think as humans we would only have to hear someone else's story like that one time and never find ourselves in that again. And I'm sure back then you had some degree of people who were talking to you and said, hey, man, that's a little risky having it all in one. You heard it. I've heard it. I've got 3 clients right now who are probably not 90% of their total revenue, but well over 50. 2 of them are going through what you went through 10 years ago. One of them is kind of saying, oh shit, I could be at risk. And it's like, it almost seems like people have to live it before they learn it. And which really, I think that's as humans, we don't change until we're in pain a lot of times. But isn't that kind of, do you share that observation? It's such a hard lesson. It seems like many people get caught in it even though they know better. What do you think about that?
and I had indicators that it was coming, and I had plans, time to plan, but like it creates so much noise and attention that it's hard to untrap that beast, and
Oh yeah.
it's even as we were going up, I was like, okay, salespeople. I need salespeople here because I don't have enough time. You know what I mean? The classic MSP mistake of just hiring a salesperson, assuming that they were just going to get business, right? And like I didn't really plan for it or make it intentional or do any of the work that really needed to get put in place before we started growing.
Right.
And to your point, I don't know if I really could have prepared. I mean, yes, I could have prepared better. I think in retrospect, actually now, cash is king, right? So a lot of the mistakes that I made at that point, I've no longer made, right? So there's a lot of, if you're going to be in that space, you better be making a lot of money, right? And then you better be able to bank on that money because there's going to be a day. And then, one of the things that I ended up doing at a certain point, and I'm glad I did this. And I did it like in like a notepad document of like, if I lost these guys, what would I have to do? And then I literally went line by line through my P&L, and I was like, this goes, this goes, this goes, this goes, this goes, this goes,
Right.
And I'm glad I did that because that really helped me recover, I think, a lot faster.
Mm-hmm.
But I wrote it and then I ignored it for 7 months, and and it's like then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I know I put a plan together somewhere. It wasn't even in a Word document; it was in a Notepad document somewhere on a laptop.
Yes.
I think human nature like does it, but it's definitely a learning experience, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I think you plan for the best and prepare for the worst, right?
That's
Hope for the best, prepare for the worst, right?
That's right. And so now you've mentioned sales a couple times now, and you're touching on an area that I just really hold near and dear around MSPs and the constant battle of salespeople. And you put it really succinctly of, hire salesperson, just let them go, hope for the best, and just don't prepare anything. Have you matured out of that now? Are you in a spot where either you have salespeople and you have a good program, or you have a program and you're ready to hire salespeople? Where are you on that sales team?
That journey, yeah. Right, it's probably the pillar that I'm still the weakest on from our organizational perspective. I feel like, I personally believe that money spent on marketing, until you're so busy as being like, number one, no one's ever going to sell the business the way that an owner sells the business, right? No one can speak this story or understands the challenges that come with ownership, I think, the way that an owner has, right? And I think a lot of MSPs do themselves a disservice by showing up to these meetings and talking tech instead of being owner-to-owner led sales, right? And number one, I think by far, you got to lean into yourself as the primary salesperson when you get started. And that means leads. And the best way to get leads in this day and age, in my opinion, is marketing. I think marketing is completely underrepresented as an option for MSPs. And I think there's a lot of pieces that go into marketing that, it's a crowded market space. Why should I pick your company versus my company, right? What is the difference, right? Why is your company a better fit for my organization than my company, right? So, and I don't think MSPs really can answer that, right? I think they're just so excited that they get that lead in the door that whatever. And I was like that too,
Sure.
And I think the thing too is like, this tends to be an industry dominated by introverts and guys that tend to be sort of technical in nature, do consultative selling. And so the idea of like getting out to mixers and talking to other business owners is I think the way that traditional sales, most owners think of traditional sales. And that's not the way it really is, right? And I think for us internally, coming up with who we are, what makes us different, what's the philosophy of our sales, and then I think speaking more about the business impact and less about the sort of features and bits. Once you get those pieces put together, then I think you're ready to really start selling, right? And to your point, you hit a couple of pieces. Selling is a system and a process, just like getting service tickets closed is. You know what I mean? There's more of a human element. There's a lot of soft pieces, a lot of wiggly room and everything else. But at the end of the day, follow up is a follow up, an appointment is an appointment, a presentation is a presentation, a close is a close, right? And so if I could go back in 10 years, I'd kick myself right in the rear end and hand myself a sales playbook and say, get doing it. I'd be a lot further along now,
Absolutely.
So for us internally, so we've had different reps with fair to middling success. The last rep we had, super good guy. And we were selling $800 to $1,000 MRR deals. And then I started running the numbers on the P&L. Our cost per net new logo was $29,650. And so if I'm selling a $1,000 deal with a 50% service gross margin, guess when I'm going to make money? When your kids graduate college.
That's right.
It's like, you can't run a business that's selling into these small places, right? And so I think there's a maturity. But the other thing too, on the flip side of this, I was thinking about this the other day. There's no way a 4-person shop could support the number of endpoints and people and process that we do now. We can't sell into those organizations. So there has to be a maturity process that comes with this. Someone's got to take care of those small clients in the beginning when you're not spending $29,000 a lead to get a net new logo, And so we looked, we coached, we hoped, we prayed, and it just didn't work out. And then we brought somebody else in, and I think in retrospect, we didn't have a strong enough sales process. We didn't have a strong enough training program, and we didn't have the discipline to sit down and really speak the message to our rep. And that was my fault. That was my failure, And I think it's an evolution. I don't think there's one answer to this, and I think any MSP that comes on here and says they got sales now and knows the secret sauce, I don't see it. I think it's work.
Yeah. So do you have salespeople right now, or are you taking a different angle right now?
Yeah, so believe it or not, so it's such a long sales cycle. What ended up happening is a lot of the efforts that we put in the beginning of the year on our pipeline started maturing all at the same time. So right now we're kind of overwhelming the service desk, and I strongly believe that onboarding is where the impression really gets sent on the quality of the organization. And so as a team, we decided that we're going to pause getting an SDR in here or BDR in here and really focus on improving the service process all the way through to make sure that we're delivering what we say we're going to deliver, and then coming back and refocusing back on the sales piece.
Okay. Man, I hate that with a passion. I do, and it's so natural. It's so in this. I'm not going to try to turn this into a consulting session. I do have to make sure that I speak my truth in here as well. That makes perfect sense. The challenge with that I find is that, well, here's the question: when will you know you're ready to start up sales again? What magic things? And I won't try to trivialize it. What indicators will you have that says we're ready to turn that on, and then start that 6-month pipeline build, so that 6 months from now we'll be busy again? What will your indicator be?
So there's 2 key things that I'm looking at. Number one, I need to be able to use our CRM and understand the way that it works and gets managed, counted. Because we're a ConnectWise shop, and we use ConnectWise, and we moved to a different CRM. We're a HubSpot shop now, and the process is much different, right? So the integration between the marketing and sales piece is significantly better. We've invested a lot more in the tools. I personally can't navigate it, and if I can't do it, how can I expect my sales guys to do it? So I want to make sure that we're tracking calls, emails, appointments, all of it, and we're being able to sort of measure this stuff. So we got to build the structure first. That's number one. And then the second piece is I got to look down on my calendar, and I got to see 20 hours of extra time for the next 4 to 5 weeks, so I can sit down with this person and talk to them about the way that we do the process, the way that we do the prospecting, and the way that we make time and deliver our value.
So those 2 things are beautiful, and please do exactly that and don't move forward until those are done. But I think the point you were making a moment ago was about I'm going to put a pause on sales until I get service ready. We would overwhelm our service desk. Maybe I misunderstood, but I thought you were saying I got to get service better before I continue the sales effort.
No. Our service is fine.
I'm so glad I misheard that then. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
You're saying I want to get my sales infrastructure built, then I'm going to get the SDRs going or BDRs going or whatever they are again.
Correct.
Okay, good. Then we're just going to erase that part where I
Yeah.
said, God, I hate that. No,
Oh,
I'm
yeah, yeah,
so with you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's, dude, that is so awesome. That is, and you got a couple hundred hours of work to do in building that sales infrastructure, right?
exactly.
So that that's the thing that so many times when we meet a client that we're working with, it's, hey, tell us about sales. And they'll say, funny you should ask. We just hired somebody yesterday, or they just had somebody start last week. And it's like, dude, that's awesome. Hey, can I take a look at their comp plan, their job description, their onboarding plan? And they're like, oh, you know what? I'm working on those right now. And I'm like, God, I love your enthusiasm, but the probability of that person making it past 6 months is so low right now. If we would have put that 20, 30 hours of work into getting that stuff dialed in, we might have a very different outcome with that person. So you're
Yeah,
doing the awesome thing saying, I'm building that out now, and I'll
yeah,
hire when I'm ready to bring that person in and say, let's work our magic with them.
yeah. And we've had some churn on the service desk, so really it's a capacity problem, not a service problem, right? So
Yeah, sure, sure.
onboarding adds a lot of chaos into the system, right? And so, I think best in class does 4 onboardings, 1.3 per month, right? Is what service leadership generally recommends, or that's kind of the numbers here. So, and I think even sometimes more than one for a very large client can be a lot, particularly if it's not a vertical stack, right? So, like if you're bringing in a totally new vertical, learning that language and the repertoire and all that other piece really adds a lot of extra. But yes, thank you. I appreciate that, Josh. I also agree with you. It hurts me internally to not have somebody dialing the phone and making
Yeah.
this stuff. But the thing that's different about us, what's unique about us, is we still have the marketing engine working, right? So it's
Yeah.
not
Oh,
like
yeah.
we've turned that piece off, right? So the leads are
Yeah.
still hitting the board. We're getting the leads off of, our Google ads is doing its thing, or that stuff's happening. So
Nice, nice, nice. So let's stay in this sales infrastructure for a second. So you mentioned a couple of things. You're a ConnectWise shop. You're using, and I'm so old I still call it manage, but I call it ConnectWise. Then I trained
me
myself to do
too.
manage. Now it's
I still call it
PSA.
lab tech.
Right, 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 right. Yeah, it's so crazy. So so you're a PSA shop. You brought in HubSpot. How long you been in the HubSpot world now?
Uh, little over a year, I'd say,
Okay.
like 15, 16 months.
Yeah,
We
nice.
we did a total rebrand of the website, and we built it in the HubSpot system.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and so we spent probably at the time I thought it was way too much time. I wish I would have been a little bit clearer with making decisions, but I'm so proud of the output of it and the
Yes.
quality. Like I think one of the things that I really hear a lot is like I wanted a website where a business owner could understand what they were clicking on. That wasn't like VoIP, a BDR, BCD, you know, uh,
Right.
continuity and security operations. And like most people don't care. Like most business owners don't care. I wanted to create a site that like hey, I'm a business owner and this is my problem. This is the way I want to feel.
Yeah,
These are
yeah.
the things I think are going to solve that problem. So anyway, yeah, long
Nice.
long answer, but yeah, year and a
And
half.
did you when you rolled that HubSpot out, did you hire some HubSpot experts to help you out?
Yeah, so we hired a web firm initially,
Yeah.
and then we hired a consulting firm to help us with the HubSpot, and the implementation really didn't go as well as we were hoping. So now we're doing a second iteration, Josh.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
um, you know, uh, you pay. You generally pay for things twice, the wrong
Yeah.
way and then the right way.
It's I share this publicly with our clients a lot. It's part about 30% of our business is all about the ConnectWise stack. So been doing it for 20 years, blah blah blah. We're awesome at it. We're amazing. And when we rolled in HubSpot in like 2017, I said, hey, I understand how tools work. I'm going to figure this thing out. And I was like, okay, that means this and that means that. Got it all built out, to whatever I needed at the time. And then it was 5 years of just like learning that I don't know shit. Like, oh, I
Yeah,
thought this was this and I thought that was that. And, I'd have, a consultant come in and just help me do the thing. And he's like, dude, yeah, I can force my way into making this thing you want work, but it's you got a problem here. About 3 years ago, I brought in a real expert, and nice guy, professional, amazing firm. It's Tactics MSP Marketing. They're just awesome. But he's so kind, but it was easy to tell that he was saying, "This is dog shit. The things you made are now lifetime problems because we can't unwind a lot of these clocks." And he has had to spend so much time like making stuff work and work around that about a year ago we're like, should we just scrap it all and start fresh? And he made the call not to, but that was on the table. So I'm glad that
Wow.
you're so early in the journey and saying, okay, let's just keep bringing in some experts to help. What's the thing that's helped me a lot was I love sales process. I have very, strict processes that I like to follow. And when it came to HubSpot, I didn't try to replicate my system in the tool. And this last 6 months has been like light bulb after light bulb after light bulb of like, yep, that's what my stages should look like. That's what my next type should be. And it's in 6 months, I feel like I finally have what I wanted 10 years ago. So yeah, whatever that means to somebody listening to this,
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're in HubSpot. I'm glad that you're, getting help as you envision what it's going to look like.
Yeah, so I hadn't heard of your firm until just recently.
Yeah.
But so funny story. So another story here. So I was at a IT Nation. I bought
Yeah.
Lab Tech, right? Because I needed to manage all those endpoints, and I just never had the time to implement it. Lab Tech, for those that aren't on the call, is a delicate angel that bounces on the head of a pin.
Yeah.
And so you need somebody that needs
Yeah.
to run it. Or at least you did in the old days. So anyway, they offered me a free ticket to IT Nation, which I had never gone to. And
Oh,
I'd flown down there. I was sitting at the bar. I was having a bourbon, feeling sorry for myself. And I sat next to this guy.
Josh
And
Preston.
no, it wasn't Josh Preston.
No, it
Although I
wasn't.
did.
Oh,
No,
I
no,
thought
no,
for
no.
sure you're going to say
No,
Josh. Sorry, go ahead.
no. So it was a guy named Steve Smith, I think. Steve from SWAT Systems out of Seattle. I
Okay.
think he just sold his MSP. I don't even know if he remembers the story or not. But
Okay.
so we're sitting down there, and I'm like, "Woe is me," and I'm telling him this story. And he said, "Hey, man," he's like, "Listen," he's like, I know the pain you're in, right?" And he says, "But you got a business to run. And so I'm going to write this name down on the back of a card, and I want you to get back, and I want you to call this guy. He's going to teach you how to run a business, which you have as a
Nice.
business, right?" And I think that was actually that IT Nation. I came in, I was like, "Oh, I get it. This isn't a remote management tool and like a ticketing system. This is a way of making money." And so that really opened up my eyes. And then I got
Oh,
the
yeah.
name of this consultant, and I got back there, and I didn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. And I'm like, I'm going to find this money somewhere. Called that guy, and we spent, I want to say, 21 months going back and unwinding all the damage that I had done in the intervening 3 months of when I bought these tools and rebuilt everything. And when I was done, I was like, okay, we're selling service contracts at a 50% gross margin, and here's how I'm going to measure that. And, it was
Oh,
like, boom. If I could give anybody advice,
yeah.
hire a firm. Spend the money.
Yeah, it's just obviously I'm a hammer, so everything's a nail, but I have two different consultants working with us. Not even thinking about the guys that work on the tools, and it's like, dude, I can't do this all. I can't know everything, and I thankfully I never really thought like I knew everything, but I definitely when I was finally able to afford bringing in that help for myself, it's like, bam, just everything starts moving so much faster and easier. So yeah, on the tools for sure, it's just like why try to figure this out? Picture what you want it to do and just go find the expert to do it. It's just money well
Yep.
spent.
Totally.
Okay, so we're building that sales infrastructure. I feel like I could keep you on here for 5 hours. I won't do that for sure. But
No, no. Yeah, I love this stuff, man. Yeah.
so I want to share. I'm going to share my thought on sales expectations, and then I want you to break it apart or share your thoughts on it. Is that okay? We'll play that little game for a second. Oh, I think we froze.
Yeah, that sounds
Okay,
good.
there we go. We're
Sure.
unfrozen again. Good.
Yeah, caught
Okay,
up. Looks like
so
we caught
I'm a
up.
bit.
Yep.
We caught up. All right, good. So my philosophy on sales, people, and expectations is we pay them a base salary to do the effort and the activities. They get commissions for when they win. So if that's my premise, then I need to have very clear expectations of the difference between effort and results and what kind of effort I'm going to measure. So I'm really happy to pay a base salary for, did you do this many prospecting activities? That's the effort. And for now, the result is how many first appointments you got in the period measured. Once you start mastering that, then the first appointment becomes the effort, and the result is proposal opportunity. And if I can play that game and manage that and set those expectations week after week after week, once they're closing, then closing the deal is the result, and the effort is how many proposals did you send out this period measured. And that's always worked very well for me. Tell me where that aligns with your views, or maybe some other things we could add on for other people to pick up on.
That's really interesting. So, are you saying, so basically what you're saying is when you start your salesperson, you're measuring activity, baseline. And when they can prove that they've reached baseline, then the effort becomes FTA. And then post FTA, it's presentation. And so you kind of move the benchmark down successively as they skill up. I've never heard that, Josh. That is brilliant. That is brilliant.
Yeah, because think about where you've been in the past and where so many MSPs kind of start out as, I don't care what you're doing, just bring me deals, just close deals. I'm not here to babysit you. I'm not here to do anything else. It's you either close or you don't. It's like, but what about the work? Even professional athletes need guided, structured, activities to get them ready for game day. And that's a lot of the base pay, a lot of that salary goes towards, are you showing up to camp? Are you showing up to training? Winning the Super Bowl or winning the game is, ultimately the goal. But if we didn't do all this other stuff and really hold those guys accountable to themselves, we weren't going to get anywhere.
That's brilliant. Yeah. I reflecting on this is a problem I think a lot of MSPs probably have and probably suffer. You're right. I hand the sales guy, look, I want you to get this all the way to the end zone, right? So it's like, how are you going to get it to the end zone, right? If you don't know what the routes are, or you don't know what the defense is playing, or right. So you got to run those reps, right? And then we talked about this earlier. It's a 6-month sales cycle. So it's great. You've stopped doing any of your prospecting, and you're chasing down these 3 leads, and you've got one potential deal that's going to close. Great, awesome. Guess what? Pipeline's dry because you weren't doing the other piece. You weren't putting the reps in and getting the practice the way that you were supposed to, right? And so the idea of a structured and staggered sales training plan where the compensation is based on the next level attainment is brilliant. I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. I could absolutely see how you could tie that in. And not only that, but it gives you an opportunity to get them being successful. You know what? It's a lot easier to get a first-time appointment than it is a close, right? And so salespeople love winning. You know what I mean? And so it's like, hey, look, here's the thing, dude. I want 4 FTAs. That's it. Let's get 4 FTAs. Let's focus on that, right? And then we could do 16 this quarter, right? Then my expectation is going to be, I'm going to let you start doing some of the discovery meetings with our engineering team, right? And so, and then, move you up the cycle, right?
That's it. Yeah, it's so counterintuitive a lot of times when somebody is kind of learning how to be a sales manager, learning how to bring in salespeople, to say, I'm paying for effort. No, I'm paying for results, aren't I? No, you're actually paying for effort, to the point where any comp plan, any sales program I've put together for a client in the last 20 years is, for that first year, I need to be ready to write a lot of checks for a lot of shitty appointments, right? Because I want that salesperson getting those wins. Contact us. They're doing the hardest part. Okay? The hardest part is taking a stranger and getting them to say, yes, I'll meet with you or your boss for an hour, 45 minutes, whatever it is. So that's the hardest part. So I love paying that salesperson. I'll pay you $50, $100 for every first appointment. Hey, you get me an appointment, there's 50 or $100. When we get to that 100th appointment, because I don't want to shit on them at all for like, dude, you sent me to grandma's knitting club basement. I'm still going to come back and high five you and say, well, there might be something. Her grandson owns a company and she said she's going to introduce me. I'm going to still high five them until about the 100th appointment. I'm going to say, now let's look at those 100 appointments, and let's you and I, salesperson, figure out why those some of them were great and some of them were less great. Now let's move the bar. I'm going to pay $1 for Grandma's Basement Knitting Club, but I'm going to pay $100 for, the one that looked like that. Now let's raise the bar, and now you're going to kind of moderate yourself to say, I'm on the phone with this guy. This doesn't really sound like who Jim wants to meet with. Let me not really push as hard on this one. Let me figure out the profile of more of that ideal client profile. But letting him get the wins, I think you're dead on right.
No, I think you're right too. So it's interesting, Josh. So when you're talking about a sales rep, so do you have your typical sales reps? Are you bringing them in and have them hit the phones like cold call and sort of activity monitoring?
Yeah, I always shout out a woman named Annette Sullivan. She's at a company called Valley Tech Logic, and she goes way back in the history and lore of Bering McKinley. She built Bering McKinley, and I always have to say that because to answer your question, I have to say yes. After about 3 weeks of onboarding, they're going to make their first call, and that's how I'm going to be measuring them. We're going to really work on the conversation and the different stages of getting to that person they want to talk to. But once they can prove that they can do that and that they're going to meet their activity quota, I'm going to say, now let's get into Facebook, let's get into LinkedIn, let's get into Reddit, and let's figure out how your real personality can shine. It took me a while to realize that Annette wasn't making this massive amount of appointments for me, picking up the phone and calling every day. She was doing a massive push with her true awesome personality, making friends of owners of MSPs on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Reddit. And it was just incredible. So long, answer to your very short question. Yeah, hitting the phones is very, very important, but having those other angles of how you're going to vector into meeting those people is equally as important.
No, I agree. Yeah, because we split the roles as outside and inside, right? And so I think, do you guys have outside reps?
You know what? I used to know what people meant when they said outside, inside. Now I just get confused. Break it down for me, what you mean by outside.
So for me, so the inside rep is generally the one that's doing the sort of appointment setting, outbound calling, emails, et cetera. Whereas the outbound person is sort of working out the in-person angle, right? Sort of event marketing, going to, the Chamber of Commerce events and, the sort of like closer, more in-person relationship events versus the guy that's hitting the phones and hitting LinkedIn. Now, there's definitely overlap, but...
Well, let me ask this. Is the person making phone calls going on their own appointments?
No, generally not.
Okay. That's the part that I think is missed. For me personally, from my mentors, that distinction sometimes doesn't serve us as well as we think it will. So I think of if we believe, or I know I believe, if someone else accepts my truth here, that the person who picks up the phone and gets that stranger to meet with them, that's the hardest part. They've already established some connection. And in the beginning, maybe that first 100 appointments, they're making appointments and the owner, Josh or Jim, hey, Annette, you made the call. You're coming with me, right? Because they know you, they trusted you, they trusted your endorsement of me to go out and sit with them. But I want you to be able to get to the point where you can sell. The person I am not nearly as impressed with is the guy who says, Annette made me a bunch of appointments. I went out on them. Hey, Annette, those are bad appointments. Oh, that's not sent me enough appointments. A true salesperson to me says, you can take a stranger and make them a friend.
Yeah.
And if I'm just handing you somebody saying, Annette set the appointment, you'll have some success with that for sure. But I've got limited dollars, and I would rather bring the Annettes in to say, you're going to start here and you're going to work your way into being the person going on the appointments. Any appointments Annette sets, they're going to me, the owner. All right. That's been my approach.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, you're right. It really is getting just that little bit of warmth in a lead. It is really, I mean, moving it from, minus 700 Kelvin to minus 200 Kelvin. So it's
Yeah.
a lot of temperature movement, and you're
Big,
right.
big.
It's a hard job to do that piece for
Yeah.
sure. Um,
I'm,
yeah.
I'm
So
also,
Josh,
I'm
I
also,
hope other MSPs are listening to this. These are nuggets, man. You're
yeah. Oh yeah, dude, we're dropping some knowledge here. I'll tell you, I'll put a little pin in how I view it as well is I'll hire anybody to be a salesperson for me. And by I mean anybody, I mean anybody. If you who meets a minimum criteria, and the criteria is all about personality and drive. If you are working the counter at Avis Car Rental at East Pitchfork Airport, I'm hiring you, right? Because
Mhm.
you know how to weather the storm. People are there about to have the best time of their lives, going on a vacation, going on a trip, whatever, but you are the last stop of the worst part of whatever they're about to do. So you are getting people sometimes at their worst moment. They just got off a flight. They're waiting for you to try to upsell them shitty insurance. If you were successful at that, I'm going to bring you in. I'm going to teach you how to be a salesperson. And if your path with me stops with you're just making appointments for me for 3 years because you just found you don't really want to go out and meet people, that's okay. But I'm also not going to cap you. I'm going to hire you with the intention of saying, let's get you on this journey to where you can be out selling deals. It's going to take a
Yeah.
while. Some of you will do it faster or slower than others, but you start this path making calls and let's see if we can get you making 150,000 a year. The person
I
I
like
don't
it.
want to hire is the person who says, I'm an expert salesperson. I don't make cold calls. Get out of here, man. Not interested.
Yeah,
Not
no, yeah,
interested at all.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yep, yep,
Yeah.
yeah. I can't count bad attitudes, right? But I certainly can count calls.
Yeah. Sorry, I now turned this conversation into me talking about all my goofy thoughts on things, but
No, I love it, man. This is great, dude.
yeah, well, more interesting than that is your journey. You're going to be building that infrastructure for your sales team. You're going to be working on your HubSpot. Uh, what are you working on right now in terms of building that sales infrastructure? What are kind of some of the components and documents and processes that you're building out right now?
So it's funny. We're actually tonight we're going out. We're having some bourbon with the guy that helped us with our messaging. A guy by the name of Zach Messler, and he did IT the proper way, and so he helped us sort of distill that into our messaging. And right now, I was considering because I'm trying to build a leadership team, right? Because I think this is a great example. We're talking about consultants here. You're like, man, if I had enough money to get a consultant, and it's like, hey, what if you can get a consultant full time, right? How much more could you deliver? How much service could you deliver? How much could you learn? And so that's the way I've been looking at the people that we've been bringing in. I've got an amazing COO right now, super great
Oh
guy.
yeah.
We just got an amazing finance person now, and we've got a fantastic marketer. We got a great service manager now. And so it's that sales and marketing piece. And it's like it's nebulous. There's no right answer to this, and so that's why I'm so interested in the questions here because I feel like there's so much to learn, and there's so
Yeah.
many different ways that you can build this structure, right? So anyway, again, long-winded, but I think building the CRM and doing it the right way in a way that you can quantify and measure, and then I think getting the time and space to plan and build out is great. But I also would love if I would love to bring in somebody that's been there, done that, right, and then let them build the best damn sales and marketing team on the East Coast. You know what I mean? Like that's really, and so the question is, how can we get enough revenue in the door to get somebody in here to support that kind of
You're
growth,
talking about
right?
a salesperson or a sales manager?
Probably a sales manager, right? So I think, but you can't get a sales manager until you have a salesperson, right? So a lot of these guys don't like to wear both hats. I mean, sometimes you can, right? So to your point, there's somebody out there that's like, I'll do it for 2 years, 3 years, but after that, I want X underneath me, which.
I went through an exercise with, I'm in Chicago. There was a client here, really awesome company, just did things, 10 degrees different than the MSP playbook. and so many things that I was like, God, don't do that, please. And they just killed it. And one of the points in our relationship was, okay, we're ready to build a sales team. And we're like, all right, cool. So we said, we can do bottom up or we can do top down. Mm-hmm. And they were in a fortunate position where they had built a bit of a bankroll. And they said, okay, if those are our two choices, we want to do top down. And so we did the math and said, okay, you're going to be about 250K over the next, 16 months. You're not going to see a dime come in for at least 12 of those months. Okay. So, but for them, that math worked. And what we did was we went out and found a really solid sales manager and said, okay, here's the framework of a sales department that we want. Can you build this? And then hire your team and lose your team and hire your team again and kind of work within these parameters that we're setting out for you. And hired that sales manager, spent, months kind of saying, let's build the process, let's build the documentation, let's get the tools dialed in. And just got to that point where they're about to start building their team, and he bailed out, and that's okay. But when we hired the next sales manager, it's like, great, you take a look at this framework, decide that you want to work within it. Now let's start building your team. And that worked really, really well. Most of us aren't in a position to bankroll like that. Yeah. But there is a play where you say, I don't want to build it. I don't want to pretend I have the expertise. I'm going to have the manager first and have them build it in their likeness, and now go. But you can also do bottom up, which is let me, the owner, build that framework good enough to bring in a couple of people and kind of work out the kinks and figure out if I'm going to be able, when I'm going to need to bring in that leader to kind of say, I might be good at building infrastructure, but I may not be great at consistent leadership of a sales team. All right, cool. Then do the pieces you're good at.
Yeah.
All right. So I don't know what in that kind of
top down, bottom down. Yeah. No, it resonates. So I like the idea of top down, right? So I like the idea. So I think one of the things that you learn, I mean, there's certain thresholds in this business where you get to a certain level of revenue or employees, whatever the number is, where I think you got to kind of jump and make investments, right? And I think, right around where we're at is investing in a leadership team. And you got to sacrifice EBITDA, right? That's just the way that it goes. You're not going to be able to build a sales and marketing engine, on best-in-class numbers. And you just can't. You can't get somebody that's really good without sacrificing profit, right? So, but here's the thing. Here's the secret that nobody tells you. If you're not selling your company, EBITDA doesn't matter. It really doesn't, right? So, it's like, okay, if I'm bringing in, a bunch of people to come look at me, I want 3 years of nice clean EBITDA so they can see it. But the reality is organic growth is something that's very hard to come by in this industry. And if you can invest properly, you can really, really get some heads turning, right? So I like the idea of a top down because, to your point, you're bringing in somebody that's already been there, done that, that's already cut their teeth on all these things that you're going to spend an extra 6 months to 8 months learning the hard way and doing half-assedly. So, I like the idea of top down, but do I have $250,000 of extra money just sitting around to dump into the top of the funnel or,
Right. Yeah, it's tough. And it's one of those kind of like, what are the pot odds here? Am I really going to win this bet? And how long is it going to take me to get that ROI? Well, very interesting. Let me ask you this, Jim. If another MSP was listening, they had this opportunity to hear you chat for the last hour, what's the one takeaway you'd want them to remember?
Who, not what. Who, not what.
Who, not what.
So who are the people that you can get on your team to do the work better than you will? Yeah. Not what can I learn to do better? Ooh, the second you make that lesson, the second you learn that lesson is when you really start to grow.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. Well done. Well done. And Jim, where can people find y'all?
You can find me at propersky.com. I'm on LinkedIn. So I think a Proper Sky Gym or something like that is my tag. I forget exactly what the URL is. Yep. and down to Philadelphia Union games. That's the other place you can find me. So,
Nice. And what events are you going to be showing up to in the next couple of months?
we got a bunch of stuff. So, what do we got coming up? EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, is
Yeah.
doing Nerve down in Atlantic City next month. And then I'm heading to IT Nation, whatever the hell they're calling it these days.
Yep.
And then IT Nation Grow in December. I'm going to try to get to Write a Boom. And I forget what the other one is. Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, if you see Jim out there, make sure to say hi. Make sure you saw him on the Bering McKinley podcast, the From the Trenches episodes. And Jim, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Josh, thanks for inviting me. This is great, man. Enjoyed it.
Right on. Catch you later.
See you later.